On this month's edition of Food with Fred, Fred Sauceman shaking things up. Instead of featuring a restaurant, he's featuring a favorite dish of his wife's straight from his own kitchen, her own kitchen. This really a special recipe and real near and dear to you and your family.
That's right. It's called dried apple stack cake. And if there's one dessert that really represents Appalachia, it's this one. And my wife is the only grandchild in the family to keep her grandmother's recipe alive. In fact, it goes back farther than that. Her grandmother was born in 1890. She lived in Scott County, Virginia. And her grandmother learned the recipe from her mother. So this is a recipe that's probably around 120 years old.
And we have a picture of Jill right there on the screen right now. The sense of pride as you talk about the apple stack cake and that she has in continuing this family tradition.
That's right. It's an investment of time. Although it is a dessert that's representative of Appalachia, you never see it hardly in restaurants because it's so time consuming. You're really talking about a 4-day investment of time to boil those dried apples down in water and reconstitute them. The layers of the cake are baked individually. And then once the cake is assembled, it has to sit for about 3 days to season or to cure in order for those flavors to blend in.
How difficult is it to see that dried apple stack cake sitting there during the waiting time?
That's a great question because in my wife's family, relatives got into trouble because they cut into that cake too quickly, and her grandmother got really angry at one of her sons for eating that cake before it had cured, and she said, "I'm never going to give you that cake until it's ripe and ready again."
And how can we get the recipe? Can we get the recipe? Is it possible for us to get our hands on this?
Yeah, I've published it in one of my books, Buttermilk and Bible Burgers. You can also find it online if you Google Nevada, like the state, Parker Derting, D-E-R-T-I-N-G, Derting's apple stack cake. You can find that recipe. And one of the unique things about it is, unlike some stack cake recipes, there is no spicing in this one whatsoever. It relies on the flavor of the dried apples and the filling and sorghum syrup and buttermilk in the layers.
Over 100 years old, and when you're talking about sorghum, buttermilk, everything really tied into this region, isn't it?
Right. There were things that came right off the farm. One of the reasons there's no spicing in it is the fact that spices were scarce and expensive, back then. So her grandmother didn't use them. Might have involved a trip to the local store to pick up a bag of white lily flour, which is the kind of flour you need to use for this cake. But other than that, right off the farm.
Give us the name of the book one more time and how we can get our hands on this recipe.
The name of the book is Buttermilk and Bible Burgers. It includes the original recipe, and again, there's no spicing in it, so look for that recipe. You can also find it online if you Google Nevada, like the state, Parker Derting's, D-E-R-T-I-N-G''S, apple stack cake, and you'll find it there.
You drive all over, but sometimes the very best recipes are right there in our very own kitchen, just like your wife's, isn't it?
In your own kitchen, in your own region, in this case, Scott County, Virginia.
All right, fantastic, Fred. Always a pleasure when
Thanks,
you stop
Casey.
in. All right, Merry Christmas. We'll be right back.